Hello again, everyone. I'm Dr. George Simon, and welcome to another edition of the new Character Matters program. This is the program where we talk about what I consider to be the defining issue of our time, the character crisis that we've been in for some time now, and that has affected so many areas of our lives. So many of our systems have broken down. So many of the institutions that help foster our character development have become corrupted, and we're paying a dear price for that in our relationships and our community affairs, even our politics. It's unsustainable. We have to turn things around. This era of narcissism that we've been in for some time now has to come to an end. And toward that end, I've been working for years to get some messages out there that I consider to be important. And my latest offering in that regard is a new book, Essentials for the Journey, Embracing and Living the 10 Commandments of Character. Proven principles for developing psychological, emotional, and spiritual health. The wisdom of the ages, encapsulated in a form that I hope that you can understand. And in this last series of programs, we've been talking about what I consider to be the primary task of character, and that is developing our capacity to genuinely love. To do that, we have to know what love is versus what it isn't. So many things masquerade as love, lead us astray, inhibit our capacity to genuinely show it, to genuinely do it, including to ourselves. Most of the folks that I've counseled over the years have had virtually no idea how to properly care for themselves. And if you can't properly care for yourself, if you don't know how to love yourself, if you don't know your worth and where it comes from, you can't possibly properly and genuinely love another. This is the reason why so many relationships fail these days. To compound matters, so many things masquerade as love. They seem so tempting. They appear so satisfying in so many ways. They trap us, especially when in our own character development we're lagging a bit. Especially when we haven't cultivated the resources to be the kind of person that we all have it within us to be. That's why I have written all of my books, and that's why I have posted so many articles online at my blog at drgeorgesimon.com. And this new backdrop, you can see the URL at the top of the screen, so I don't have to mention it letter by letter. But we're undergoing some changes here at the studio. We're going to be jazzing up our presentation. It's going to take some time. And we're going to schedule some additional live programs too. So I hope you'll stay with me as we continue a discussion today on the nature of genuine love. And as I talk some more about love's many masquerades, the things that seem like love and really attract folks at the beginning of a relationship, but can't stand the test of time, can't stand the adversity that comes with life, and inevitably lead to disappointment and relationship failure. So I want to talk about a couple of those things. Today we began the discussion a couple of weeks ago. We continued it last week. We're going to continue it again for the next couple of weeks on what love is and what isn't and what gets in the way of it. And today we're going to be talking about what I began to talk about in the article that I just posted on the blog about narcissism and its characteristics and how it impairs our ability to love. We live in the age of fairly rampant narcissism of many types and degrees. In my book, Character Disturbance, I was the first to point out that character disturbance is a spectrum phenomenon. It exists along two different continua, type and degree. There are many different kinds of character disturbances. There are many different personality traits that accompany character disturbances. Some character disturbances are disturbances, not disorders. There are more mild manifestations of character immaturity or dysfunction. And then there are severe character disorders. And we even lack these days a good definition for what that is. But suffice it to say that in this age of narcissism, there are many different shades and varieties and serious degrees of narcissism. Some forms of narcissism are actually pretty attractive. I've written before on my blog about the amorous type of narcissist or the charming narcissist. The person who can really bowl you over. The person who seems to have it all. You want to be in their company. And they're skilled at certain interpersonal maneuvers, too, such as the ego massage. And they give you something that you want. If you happen to be a person who's a bit lacking in your sense of self, you don't have a solid sense of who you are or what you're worth and where that worth comes from, an astute ego massage artist will get right to you, will seem to affirm you so much that you think they must therefore love you. But just providing you with the affirmation you crave doesn't necessarily mean that someone has positive regard for you or is really concerned with your welfare. They just could be wanting to steal your heart for whatever their selfish purposes are. It seems callous, in a way, to even talk about these things, but we live in a very, very different age. Some folks think I'm catastrophizing a bit when I talk about how rampant character dysfunction is. But I'm not necessarily talking about severe disorders all the time. I'm talking about the broad spectrum. And I am asserting, and unabashedly so, that character disturbance of one type or another, of one degree or another, is the defining issue of our time. In ages past, not in every age, seems like we human beings have had to go through very distinct cycles in our history. But in times past, character mattered more than it does today. And so, a lot of time and energy was devoted to instilling it. And we seemed to universally accept, more universally anyway, the basic tenets of how to instill that character, the basic principles that we believed we needed to embrace in order to be decent people. Honesty, for example, integrity, being able to trust that the person we're contracting with is going to be true to their word, that we can actually close a deal on a handshake and not have to worry about being screwed over, not have to worry about being exploited, conned, deceived. These were the things that parents, educators, other mentors spent a lot of time trying not only to instill, but to nurture and reinforce in people. And more importantly, because character was so valued and expected, there were rewards in society for being a decent person. It came with certain rewards. There was some reinforcement out there. For years, it hasn't paid to be decent. In fact, many of the most decent folks that I know in relationships have been exploited primarily because of their decency. The nefarious characters that they hooked up with, who they didn't know were nefarious characters at the outset, because they were effectively deceived, used their good nature against them, exploited it, counted on them to do the right thing while they were doing all the wrong things. Valuing integrity in the other, but having no motivation whatsoever to develop integrity themselves. Why? Because one person in the relationship had enough integrity for everybody. This is unsustainable. We have to make character matter again. We have to afford it the importance that it once did. We have to devote the time and energy that it takes to help not only instill it, but foster its continued development and reinforce it. We need to restore the structures and institutions in our culture that can help make it cool, once again, to have character. Not only that, to expect it, to make it difficult for folks who lack integrity to get anywhere, to amass power or influence. And it all starts at the relationship level. Too many folks enter relationships without much care about the character of their potential partner, and without the ability to discern, without knowing enough about what makes up a decent person to be able to make a reasonable call. Is this the kind of person with whom I want to spend the rest of my life? Do they have what it takes to really love? Are they mature enough? There are so many masquerades. We've talked about some of them. A lot of people equate love with attraction. There are so many reasons why folks are drawn to one another. And I'm not talking about just physical attraction. There are many things, many different dynamics that can bring people together. But attraction alone is not love. It can certainly accompany love. But just because you may be powerfully attracted to a person does not signal that love is there. Love is that thing that will last, and that will nurture, and that will grow. Attraction fades. It's supposed to. When it's part of love, it doesn't fade so much. But attraction itself is not love. Some folks equate attention with love. Folks who have designs on you, folks who see something in you of value, you represent some value added to their life, will pay you lots of attention, may even shower you with affection. And if they're astute at the art of what we call ego massage, they may also afford you a lot of affirmation. But neither attention, nor affirmation, or even displays of affection are necessarily love. There are many reasons to engage in those behaviors. And yes, sometimes those things can accompany genuine love. But they are not in themselves love. And they're big hooks for the needy. They're big hooks for those of us who may not be at the point of our own personal evolution, where we know ourselves well and have developed the capacity to care for ourselves well. So many times I will hear someone say, he or she made me feel so good about myself. Well, there's a red flag right there. Needing that affirmation and needing it externally is a red flag for the fact that a person didn't have a good, solid sense of who they were or what they were worth in the first place. So when someone comes along and provides that affirmation, it's a big emotional hook. And it can accompany some genuine love too, but it doesn't have to. So let's talk just a little bit about what genuine love is. We've talked quite a bit about what it isn't. You can review some of the prior podcasts on this topic, and you can go to the blog at drgeorgesimon.com and read some of the articles about it. Quite simply, and it is really rather straightforward, love is regard for another, positive regard for another. It's not just openness to the welfare of others, but enough self-assurance, enough internal peace and openness to actively participate in fostering the welfare of another. Now, we can't do that to the neglect of our own welfare. It's all a matter of balance. But love is all about nothing but wishing and wanting well for another and engaging in behaviors that actually promote that. And it starts with ourselves. If we know how to do that well with ourselves, if we know how to tend to our needs in a balanced way, how to put ourselves out when we need to put ourselves out, how to take a breather when we know we need a breather, how to withdraw and take a rest when we know we need a rest, how to have some mental and emotional and spiritual refresh time when we need that too. If we know how to do all those self-caring things, and we don't need anyone to do them for us, then we're much freer to be able to do those things with and for another person. Not out of mutual need, but out of mutual desire. It's edifying. It's not just pleasurable, it's edifying. Now, getting to the point where we're capable of these kinds of things is what character is all about, and that's why it matters so much. It's not just about being morally good. It's not just about observing the rules. I actually know a friend who posted on Facebook that a mark of character was returning the shopping cart to the corral instead of leaving it in the aisle or in a place where it wasn't supposed to be. Sure, these things are important. Sure, these things are important, but being an upstanding citizen or doing what the social order instructs us as the right thing is only a small part of the picture. I know all kinds of folks who will put the shopping cart in the corral and still not properly respect and honor the life of another. We're all in this together. We're all heading towards something that we can barely understand. And we all meet the same fate. All the haughty and pompous among us decompose at just about the same rate. How we walk this walk has to matter. It has to matter way more than it has for a long time now. If we're going to make it, we have to make it matter again. So I'll keep writing about it. I'll keep speaking about it. I truly pray that as the reviews begin to come in and as the word gets out, that more and more folks will avail themselves of my latest offering. I put my whole heart into it. It's not perfect. Matter of fact, in my attempts to make it really good, I probably labored way too long over it. But it was important to me because I do believe that we are at the very dawn of a new and very different age of necessity, because of how complex the world has become, because of how interdependent we are, because of how fragile some of our systems have become, and because of how many of us there are, that we can't keep doing things in the self-centered, myopic way that we've been doing it. We have to see the bigger picture, and we have to find room in our hearts to embrace the bigger picture. That's the first commandment that I talk about in Essentials for the Journey. It's expanding our awareness, seeing what's really possible, stepping outside of ourselves, making room in our heart for the most important thing of all, and perhaps, unfortunately, for all too long now, the most misunderstood thing of all, and that is love. But it's nature's most powerful force, and it has the power to save us. But first, we have to learn what it is and what it isn't. So please avail yourself of the many articles on the blog at drgeorgesimon.com. If you have a mind to, avail yourself of my books, In Sheep's Clothing, Character Disturbance, The Judas Syndrome, How Did We End Up Here, and my latest offering, Essentials for the Journey, perhaps the work I'm most proud of, despite its imperfections. It's the message that I hope resonates more than anything else. And I'll be back again for another edition of The New Character Matters, and we'll continue to make some improvements. We'll have some conversations live, I hope. And you can also contact me through the blog using the contact feature on the Contact Dr. Simon page. I talk with individuals all over the world in one-time, generally, consultations, helping them process the principles that I write about and how to better put them into practice in their lives and hopefully improve their lives. So I hope you avail yourself of all those resources. I'm asked all the time about the audio version of Essentials for the Journey. It's going to be some time before I have an announcement about that. Unfortunately, we haven't decided yet, even on the platform for it. We haven't found just the right vehicle. But there will be eventually an audio version of Essentials for the Journey, just like there are of the other books. So once again, thanks for tuning in. I'm Dr. George Simon. I'll see you next time on another edition of The New Character Matters. Take care.